Hello and welcome. My name is Jevgenij Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. Some time ago, everyone was discussing the upcoming meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in Hungary. It seemed that the leaders of the two countries might at least move the negotiation process forward. However, the meeting was cancelled fairly quickly and the heads of state began threatening each other with nuclear weapons tests. To discuss what went wrong and how come the situation changed so drastically, we are joined today by the American studies expert, Alexandra Filippenko. Alexandra, glad to see you in our studio. Thank you for joining us today.
Evgeny, thank you for having me.
Well, you tell me now, how come the situation got so much heated up?
Well, all of what we're seeing, of course, it has to do with the relationship between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and with one of the issues that's extremely important for Donald Trump, because nuclear weapons and in general the agreements on nuclear weapons is an important topic for Donald Trump. Many times, even during his first administration, he talked about a new treaty with Russia, that the last one was actually signed between Barack Obama and Dmitry Medvedev. And so Donald Trump was talking about a new treaty, including China, because China has been becoming more and more powerful on the nuclear front. And especially after that parade in Beijing, the parade that commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War in the Asia-Pacific, we learned that China actually gained more nuclear weapons, more nuclear power, more than it was expected. So right now, when the Russian side is making some tests and when they're talking about some new testing of new weapons, although those are not nuclear tests, at least that's what the Russian side is saying, and Donald Trump is reacting to that with testing of American weapons, American weaponry, new weaponry, and also talking about nuclear tests. And in an interview with 60 Minutes with CBS, Donald Trump said, "Oh, don't tell me that Russia doesn't do the tests. Don't tell me that, because they just don't have journalists there. There's no one to check on them." No, they are doing those tests, actually. But at least that's the opinion of the United States president. So this theme of nuclear weapons and of nuclear capabilities of Russia and China and other nuclear states, that's a very important topic for President Trump. And Putin is doing everything to get Trump talking about that, about nuclear weapons, not about Ukraine, not about war in Ukraine, but about those nuclear tests.
My next question, why is he doing so?
Because there are only two topics, only two things that Moscow and Washington can discuss or can talk about in vacuum. And we must understand that. Only two. First is space exploration. And we must understand that Roscosmos, the Russian space agency, is visiting NASA. They are coming to the United States. And the work is going on right now and throughout the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It's been going on. So it's the first thing, the cosmos and everything about the space and all that. And the second one is nuclear. Nuclear weapons are that powerful that they can be discussed without regard to anything else. The third would be some other pandemic or a terrible disaster in the world, but let's hope nothing like that happens. But there are two things. One, space exploration, they are talking about it, but the president has nothing to do with it. But what the president has to do, both presidents have to do with our nuclear weapons and new treaty regarding nuclear weapons, and a new treaty that might include China. So for Putin, it's extremely important to drag Trump into that conversation.
Okay, now let's come back to that situation. So in your opinion, on what basis did Rubio and Trump conclude that it was too early to meet with Vladimir Putin?
Marco Rubio talked to Sergei Lavrov, and during that conversation, as we know now, Sergei Lavrov just repeated everything that he said before and everything that Russia has been saying since the start of the full-scale invasion. Denazification of Ukraine, demilitarization of Ukraine, Donetsk region, Luhansk region fully under Russian control. And Marco Rubio, as a state secretary, he briefed President Trump on that conversation, and Marco Rubio expressed his opinion. He said that it's a waste of time. It's just a waste of time because Russia doesn't move an inch towards the United States position, because the United States have a very clear position. Let's stop on the front line. Stop on the front line right now, and then you can discuss it as long as you want. Just stop now.
Stop killing people.
Stop killing people right now, this second, right now. So Marco Rubio said, why would we waste our time talking to Russia that doesn't move an inch? Nothing changes for Russia. So this is exactly why the meeting was canceled. First, the meeting between Rubio and Lavrov was canceled, and then the meeting between Putin and Trump was canceled.
My next question is, how do Joe Biden's and Donald Trump's rhetorics differ in this situation?
The difference is between not only Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but between Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats, they try to pretend as if nothing was happening, and all that rhetoric of the Russian side is just nonsense. Yes, they saw on TV, of course, everything was reported that's being said on the Russian propaganda channels about actually destroying the United States, and all those cartoons that were shown on Russian TV about the destruction of the United States on Russian propaganda channels. That's, of course, the United States government and the White House knew all about it. But they tried to not to take it to heart, to just decide that, oh, that's nonsense. They're just talking. President Trump doesn't react this way, and the Republicans are way more serious about it. They believe that if the Russian side, and especially if such people as Dmitry Medvedev, however weird he is right now, let's put it mildly, weird, still, he used to be the president. How is that possible? Isn't he, maybe he's pretending that he's weird, maybe actually he is voicing what the Kremlin is actually thinking about. That's what I
think, in fact.
Yes,
that's what I think.
Exactly, and that's what Republicans think.
And all those tweets and all that stuff from Dmitry Medvedev is actually like a test to see how the other side will react to that. That's, well, to my understanding.
Exactly. And the Democrats are acting as if nothing is happening. Because actually we must understand that for the United States, in general, for American people, nuclear weapons is a taboo. It's a taboo issue. You don't joke about it. You don't talk about it. It's extremely serious. No journalist will ever talk about it in the manner of Russian propaganda. Never. That's a taboo. That's extremely serious. There will be grave consequences for anyone, if anyone could even joke about nuclear weapons.
Really?
That's a taboo issue, 100%. But the Republicans are saying, yes, it's a taboo, but we cannot just sit idly by and not react to what is happening. And President Trump, being Trump that we know of, being very emotional and really reacting to things, being reactive, he sees all that rhetoric. And first, he says that he sends two Ohio-class submarines closer to Russia. It's a secret where they are actually in the ocean, so we cannot know. But that's what he said. That's what the president said, that Ohio-class submarines are closer to Russian borders right now. And President Trump is reacting to that. He doesn't want to sit idly by and pretend that nothing is happening. He believes that he needs to reply, and he cannot leave it at that. Because, of course, President Trump wants to show that America and American people are extremely powerful and have way more nuclear weapons than Russia, and can be the first ones to, let's say, delete Russia from the map.
Okay, let's move on then. Okay, so now, Alexandra, another question then. How did Putin's threat and offer to negotiate turn into provocation? And do you think Putin has lost Trump as a negotiator, or is there still room for an open dialogue?
With President Trump, there's always room for dialogue, possibly, but as of now, with all the discussions, we hear many things from President Trump and from the White House, but there is one repetitive thing, just one thing: stop on the front line, stop on the front line, stop on the front line. That's the only thing that Trump is repeating time and time again. So this way, if Putin really stops, yes, we might see negotiation happening, but after that cancellation of the Budapest summit, what we saw, new sanctions, we saw a passage of 3 bills through the Committee on Foreign Relations in Senate. It doesn't mean that those bills designating Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, pushing China and actually really making China hurt for buying Russian oil and buying Russian resources. And the third one is the usage of Russian frozen assets. It doesn't mean that it will go through the whole Congress, but we saw it one by one. Cancellation of the summit, sanctions,
what's your
and
view
those
on
bills.
this? What is the signal that Washington is sending?
That they will now approach Russia differently. It's not a coincidence that it all happened at one moment. All at once. It all happened all at once. And even when Viktor Orban was recently in the White House and he talked at length about Ukraine and that Ukraine cannot win on the battlefield and all that.
And he said miracles can happen.
Yes, all miracles can happen. Yes, that's right. But at the same time, while Viktor Orban was there at the White House, Reuters all of a sudden published a big piece about, from some unnamed American sources close to the president, that the American side might actually support the European Union on using Russian frozen assets. I also don't believe that it's a coincidence. I'm not sure that they will actually support it, but the fact that Reuters have someone in the White House really talking to them about Russian frozen assets and using of Russian frozen assets, that tells me that there is a fight within the White House of how to approach Russia, and now they're choosing how to do it. They are trying to figure out this new way, new stance on Russia.
New way to approach.
New way to approach.
I see. Okay. Okay, then we didn't mention Ukraine a lot during this conversation, but I wanted to ask you, where is Ukraine in all this stuff?
Right now, we see this pause in Russia trying to, United States trying to figure out what to do with Russia. But there is no pause in weapons for Ukraine. There is no pause in giving any needed information to Ukraine. No pause in anything, because the United States are continuing sending weapons to Europe that Europe is buying, and those weapons are coming to Ukraine. And Marco Rubio, talking to journalists after the G7 summit, he talked about it. He said that he understands what Russia is doing. Russia is trying to make Ukraine suffer and trying to make Ukrainian people just give up. Just give up because of hitting all the time on energy.
And also trying Trump to think about the nuclear weapon tests, but not about Ukraine.
Instead of Ukraine, yes, talking about nuclear weapons instead of Ukraine, talking about anything else but Ukraine. But Marco Rubio is focused on what is happening in Ukraine.
Okay, finally, how do you think all this nuclear rhetoric affects ordinary people, and both in Russia and in the West? And is the fear of nuclear conflict becoming normalized again? Briefly.
It looks this way, and exactly because it was tabooed. It was so tabooed in the United States. In Russia, it is normalized. I think it's been normalized for a long time because, as Putin said, they will all just die and we will go to heaven. That's his words. But in America, it was tabooed. Right now, it's becoming less tabooed, but in a powerful sense, that we are very powerful and we can have new nuclear weapons, better nuclear weapons, more precise nuclear weapons. And President Trump is trying to make everyone, on the one hand, calm and understand that he protects America, but on the other hand, he tries to figure out what's the new way to approach Russia.
Well, kids, don't play with the red button, please.
Absolutely. No way.
Okay. Alexandra, thank you for joining us today, and I really hope to see you once again in our studio.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was the American Studies expert, Alexandra Filippenko. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.